Hey guys, Beth here at Yoga Lattes London. How are you doing today? I hope you're all very well. So as promised, I wanted to jump on and share with you live some information about the deep core muscles, because a lot of people are very confused about how to engage the deeper core muscles and around the spine. And so I wanted to jump on and share just a bit of knowledge about what the deep core muscles are, why we need them, what the purpose of why we've got these core muscles, and how to engage them. So we'll do a little bit of practice on the mat. If you're sitting in a chair, you can absolutely do this in a chair as well. So going over first of all, hey Pagita, nice to see you, hey. Going over first of all what the core muscles are. So for me, the core is made up of four muscles particularly that are most important really. The transversus abdominis, or as I call it, the transverse abdominals. The TA muscle is this large muscle that wraps around the center of the body. Now it's like a corset type muscle because it's quite deep in the body, and its purpose is to kind of contain the organs of the abdomen. So it kind of keeps everything nicely sort of nicely in. So we talk about it like a corset shaped muscle because it sort of attaches via fascia, via connective tissue at the front here, and it wraps all the way around and connects onto the spine with fascia as well. So you can think about it kind of wrapping all the way around, and it attaches from the ribs onto the pelvis, and so it really is one of the key players when we're talking about core support. Second group of muscles that I want to talk about, the pelvic floor. So as you might know, the diaphragm is really important to help us breathe. We've got this diaphragm, this dome-shaped muscle that wraps around the rib cage, again attaches onto the spine, and it helps us breathe. It helps to bring air into the lungs, moving up and down. So if you think about this as like the thoracic diaphragm, the top of the cylinder, the pelvic floor muscles are like the base of the cylinder. So they wrap all the way, so they're connected with this kind of like network of muscles sort of crossing over one another at the base there, and helps to support the weight of the organs. And the whole of the upper body, if you think about it, there's so much weight that goes into the pelvic floor. And so it's really important to keep these muscles engaging and not overworked, as I'll talk about in a bit, but engaged and active and able to switch on when we need them and switch off when we don't. The multifidi are smaller muscles that run up and down the spinal column. So these are stabilising muscles, and are important for the core because they help to stabilise the spine. And then finally I want to talk about the obliques. So you probably heard this if you've been to one of my classes, you probably heard me talk about the obliques. They're these muscles at the side of the waist. Some people call them like the hourglass figure muscles. They're helping to again protect the spine, and they attach from the ribs to the pelvis. So similar to the transverse abdominals, these are really important muscles for kind of protecting around the waist, protecting this abdominal area, the abdominal organs, and really important for like side bending and movements like that. So these four muscles or groups of muscles are stabilising muscles. So I don't know, you may not have heard these terms, but stabilising muscles are the smaller muscles like the core muscles that help to control movement in the body. And on the flip side of that, we've got the mobilizers, the bigger muscles like the quads, the hamstrings, the arm, the biceps and triceps that help to move the body, to help move the skeleton, the bones. And so these larger muscles are closer to the surface. They are higher power, but they have less endurance. So on the flip side of that, the stabilizers, the core muscles and other stabilizing muscles in the body like the base of the shoulder blade, the lower trapezius muscles are like stabilizing muscles. They are smaller, they are deeper into the body, and they help to, as I said, control movement rather than instigating large movements. And they've got better endurance. But the problem is these smaller muscles in the body can often be a little bit weak for many people. There can be imbalance with posture, with our habits, our lifestyle choices, and the way we sit through the day, the way we carry our bodies. It can create imbalances, and what can happen quite commonly is these smaller muscles can sort of switch off and not be used enough, so they become really weak. and then the larger muscles will take over. So a great example of this is the shoulders. So the trapezius, the upper trapezius can often be really tight for people. If you feel, maybe your shoulders are feeling really tight, I think particularly in 2020, a lot of us have got a lot of tension here. And this is overcompensate. Excuse me. Oh, I've got a little something in my throat. Oh, excuse me. These larger muscles overcompensate, so they do twice the job that they need to do. So the smaller muscles, like the lower trapezius I was talking about, oh, excuse me. At the base of the lower part of the shoulder girdle can get really weak, and so these upper trapezius get really tight because they're doing double the work. So a great analogy I heard from a teacher once was, if you think about like working in an office, someone goes on holiday or goes off for maternity leave, and someone else has to take over their job as well as doing the job that they already had. And then of course, tiredness and fatigue is often a result of that. Well, this is what's happening with the larger muscles in the body that aren't having the help of the stabilising muscles. So if you look at the core, if the core muscles aren't strong enough, it can create lots of problems. One of these problems can be lower back pain. So the back muscles can become stretched out and super tight, which can create a lot of problems with the joints, as we know. And so it is really important to have this strong and stable base of foundation for movement. Oh, I think my throat is cleared. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so let's put a little bit of this into practice. So how to engage the core muscles. Let's start onto our backs. And one of the first things to do if you're thinking about engaging the core muscles and switching these on is really to make sure that you are in a neutral position with the spine, first of all. So have the knees bent, have your spine in neutral, and then we'll just start with some gentle tucking and tilting action of the pelvis. So drawing the lower back to the floor in a tucked under position, and then going the other way, getting some space into the lumbar. And then moving through from one extreme to the other. And a great kind of visualization for this is to imagine you've got a marble at the base of the spine. When you tuck under, the marble's going to roll down along the spinal column down to the lower back, and then as you tilt the pelvis forward, the marble's going to roll forward towards the tailbone. So we've got this sort of two movements of the pelvis, making that a larger movement. As you can feel, I'm using the larger muscles, or maybe feeling into what muscles might be switching on for you in this movement. So I can feel that kind of my back muscles are engaging, maybe my glutes might be trying to help out a little bit. And so if we can let go of those larger muscles and make this movement really, really small, we'll start to activate the stabilising muscles of the pelvic floor a little bit more. So same movement, but just like a millimetre either side of neutral. And it's not so much of a kind of controlled forward and back, it's more like just a rocking, a gentle kind of effortless sort of rocking motion. And like I said, you're not making this movement very big. It's almost, maybe it looks kind of imperceptible to you what I'm doing, but it's really small. And if you can really let go of that and just let the pelvis gently rock just a tiny bit forward and back, you might notice that the pelvic floor muscles are automatically switching on, which is what we want. So it's getting those stabilizing muscles to switch on with smaller movements in this way. Okay, so finding your neutral spine now. So we want a little bit of space underneath the lower back, and we want to have this kind of maybe slightly level between the pubic bone and the hips. It really depends on your own skeleton, your own personal body, because some people might not have those 2 points level. There might be some variation. So one of the best ways to check is to just make sure you've got a little bit of space under the lower back, and then you'll feel it for yourself whether that feels like you're in good alignment. And the more you do Pilates and these similar types of exercises, the more you'll tune into what feels right for your body. So place the first two fingers on the hip bones at the front here, and then so we're in our neutral spine, which is a great position to not only breathe into the diaphragm, so breathing is improved by having a better position for the spine, these four natural curves of the spine, but also it helps us engage the core muscles more easily. So placing the first two fingers on the hip bones, we're going to slide in just about an inch, and really you'll feel like there's a sort of valley that you're sliding down into, a slight little valley there, just about an inch inwards from the hip bones. And then if you cough or gently clear your throat, that works too, you'll feel like there's a bouncing of a muscle underneath the fingertips. That's your TA, that's your transverse abdominals that I was talking about, this big corset muscle that wraps around. And it's a really easy way to locate that muscle. So if ever you're wondering if you're switching on the core muscles, that's a great way to find out. And then you can play with that, just see if you can engage and disengage, and just see if you can feel that muscle like palpating, you know, like bouncing underneath the fingertips a little bit. And then we're going to come into an exercise to, again, use the breath to engage that. So we're going to breathe in through the nose and exhale, purse the lips. I want you to breathe out as if you've got 100 birthday candles in front of you, and you're really engaging the lower abdominal. So, and feel that muscle engaging quite strongly. So that's more strong than we want it, but we're just going to go the highest level first, then we're going to work down. So then again, breathe in through the nose, and we'll do that one more time, so really strong. Feel the muscles underneath the fingertips engage, feel the drawing into the center action, this sort of pulling in of the core. And then we're going to breathe in again, and we're going to do 50 birthday candles, so half the intensity. So have a go at that. So there's still some engagement, but it's really not strong, like it's about medium level. And then we'll take one more breath in through the nose, and we'll do that one more time, and we're going to do it with 30 birthday candles, so about 30% of our full capacity. And that's really quite a low level contraction. Then I want you to close the mouth, and I want you to breathe through the nose naturally, just at your normal pace, and try to hold on to that low level engagement there. So see if you can, not over gripping, this is really subtle. It's almost like, sometimes it helps just to visualize like a drawing into the center, sort of wrapping in of this corset around the waist, or like a belt even. That's a good analogy as well, like a belt tightening around the waist. And just feel like that lovely low level contraction there. And then see if you can pull up with the pelvic floor. See if you can consciously engage that pelvic floor, those pelvic floor muscles. That feeling of like you're trying to control urination, you're trying to control that flow of peeing when you pee, that sort of switching it on, switching it off, switching it on. See if you can practice that when you can, really getting these muscles toned. Okay, so letting that go for a moment, letting it relax, and then we'll move into adding on some levers to the body. So adding on weight will challenge the core more. So we've got our fingertips into our hip crease, into the valley in the hips there, and then keeping the pelvis stable, staying in neutral. We're going to concentrate on lifting the right foot off the floor just an inch whilst keeping the pelvis stable, and feel if you really have got that pelvis stable and you're only lifting the foot off the floor a tiny bit, I really do mean just like an inch, you will feel this core switching on, I hope, anyway. If it feels any pain in the lower back, then just tuck the pelvis under just a tiny bit and see if that helps. Placing the foot down with control, either side, so we're lifting the left foot off the floor just an inch now, and again feeling those core muscles naturally switch on. And then see if you can engage the pelvic floor a little bit, just see if you can play with that low level engagement of the pelvic floor as well. So as I said, we don't want to be over gripping the muscles. We want to be switching them on and switching them off as well, because it's really important not to kind of chronically tighten these muscles. Okay, placing the foot down, and then if you want to advance it, you can kind of, I'll scoot back just a little bit so you can see my legs, so you can float like one leg up, hinging at the hips, and again keep the spine in neutral, float that leg up to a 90-degree angle, pointing the toe, and then slowly with control, lower, hinging at the hip, place the foot down, and see if you can find that footprint that you just left. So this is real control stuff, this is slow and controlled. Hips level, floating the left leg up, coming into that 90-degree position with the leg, pointing the toes, and then slowly hinging at the hip, keep the spine stable, keep the pelvis stable, lowering down. And then if you want to advance it, you can try both legs at the same time, but just make sure there's not too much we don't really want any movement in the spine, to be honest. We want the spine to be really stable so that the core can switch on. So that we're not just going into the larger muscles of the spine. I was talking about this difference between the stabilising muscles and the larger mobilising muscles, and how sometimes the larger muscles want to take over if the smaller muscles are a bit weak. Well, that's definitely the case if you're arching in your lower back with any of those exercises. Really work on keeping the rib cage down, the lower rib cage down, keeping the spine in neutral, not overarching the lower back, and making sure we're switching on these controlling, stabilising muscles to help out the larger muscles with the movements. Okay, so Another thing you can do to slightly advance that, so we've had the lifting of the feet one by one, just an inch off the floor, just to test the core muscles. Again, keep spine stable, pelvis stable. We've had the lifting up of one leg and then slowly trying to find that footprint. And really the slower the better with that movement. You know, if you can really slow it down, we will be accessing the core. And then if you want to, you can bring both knees up, point through the toes, have the knees over the hips. If you want to have the knees slightly closer in for your lower back, that's fine. Hinging at the hips, tapping one big toe down, and then other side, big toe comes down, lifting up with control. So we're not bending at the knee here, we're hinging at the hip, so that we're really targeting the waist. And feel how the spine wants to maybe arch forward, try to keep the spine in neutral, try to keep the pelvis stable, and you really will, hopefully with any luck, feel the work going on in your abdominals. And again, you can take that up a gear by doing both legs at the same time. But that does add more of a weight on, more of a lever, so it makes it more challenging for the spine to stay in neutral. So really only go there if you feel like the core is helping to protect that movement, as long as there's no arching in the lower back and as long as there's no pain. Okay, so just to go over what I talked about, so we've got these core muscles, really important for stabilising the body, helping to support these larger mobilising muscles so that we can move freely with good function, with good balance in the body in terms of muscle groups. So we avoid injury, we're avoiding strain on and wear and tear on the joints as well. So really important to think about posture with this, our neutral spine. Even if we were practicing this in a seated position, you know, you can find your neutral position in a seated position and play with finding these low abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor engagement, just practicing that. But like I said, we don't want to be over stressing these muscles. We want to switch them on when we want them, and we want to switch them off when we don't. So what we don't want to do is carry around tension in our lower abdominals or pelvic floor. So making sure we can switch them off. And when we do switch them on, that there's a subtle engagement, that it's not too much engagement, there's not too much gripping. It's more like just a feeling of effort without overstrain and overstress. Good, so I think that's all I wanted to talk to you about today, guys. If you've got any questions, I'll just have a little look through the chat, see if anyone had any questions for me. Oh, cool. I think it was all good. Well, if you have any questions or comments, do feel free to pop it in the chat. If you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear how you got on with that, if you had any light bulb moments. And of course, I teach online classes, so if you wanted to join one of my classes, we're currently on a half-term break next week, but we'll be back. I teach 6 classes a week online, so you can head to my my page and check out via my website all of the classes there. That's yogalateslondon.com/live stream. I also teach private classes one-to-one, and I'm going to be launching a new back care course, Yoga Lattes for Back Care course. So if this kind of inspired you and maybe piqued your interest in terms of back care and engaging the core, then do DM me and I'll send you the details of the course when it launches in a few weeks' time, which is super exciting. So yeah, thank you, Birgitta. Andy's asking, how do you release tension in the pelvic floor? Good question. I think I'm not sure if I am the best person to speak to you about that. I think you'd be better off speaking to someone who is a specialist with working with pelvic floor muscles in that way in terms of releasing. I think in terms of what I teach, I'm more about kind of switching on muscles that might be more on the weak side and might be more inactive. But there are definitely people who will be able to help. I'll get in touch with you and see if I can help pass you on to the right person. But I mean, in terms of the tension, like I said, it is really important to find ways to release this tension if it is chronically tight. So a lot of people overwork these muscles and they can become really, really tight. But yeah, DM me if you've got any questions, and I will catch you all really soon. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.